What's up, everyone? This is Steve with the MMA Minute, and welcome to the MMA Minute Show. We have a stacked agenda today. First, a couple of segments, crazy, not crazy, buy, sell, hold, and what's trending, followed by my picks and predictions for UFC Mexico coming up this weekend on Saturday. And then, as always, we'll be doing fan questions to end the show. Timestamps are below if you want to skip around. Otherwise, let's get started. So, crazy, not crazy.
But I'm not crazy. She's crazy. I'm not crazy. She's crazy.
First one up here. Ilia Topuria will become the greatest featherweight of all time. And guys, I'm going to say not crazy. Might seem like a hot take, might seem like an overreaction to UFC 298, but just look at everything that Ilia Topuria has done. He has shown us so far that he can do everything. We've seen so far he is undefeated in his professional career. He is undefeated in the UFC. He has faced adversity when he fought Jay Herbert. He got knocked down. He recovered. He came back, got the finish. High-level win over Bryce Mitchell. Absolute dominant decision over Josh Emmett, where he went a hard 5 rounds, 152 significant strikes landed, mixed in the wrestling. Had a couple of knockdowns there, almost finished the fight. And then against Volk, the greatest featherweight of all time, goes out there, destroys him within 2 rounds. I've pretty much seen everything that I need to see for Ilia Topuria to say that. Think about all the greatest featherweights in the history. You have Alexander Volkanovski, you have Jose Aldo, Max Holloway, Conor McGregor. Those are probably your 4 best featherweights of all time. From a skill set perspective, Topuria could be number 1. If he plays it smart, if he plays the game and actually goes for title defenses in this division, he could do it. Now, if he chases money fights, if he chases legacy fights, goes up to 155, starts messing around there, vacates the belt to 145, of course, he's never going to do it. But the potential is there. I'm going to go ahead and say not crazy. So the second one here, Rinya Nakamura is top 10 ready right now, and I'm going to go ahead and say that's crazy. Listen, I think he's a stud. He is an A-plus prospect, but we haven't really seen him go against anyone of note. Let me just pull up his resume right now. Rinya Nakamura, only 9-0 so far professionally in MMA. We know he has an extensive grappling, wrestling background, but within the UFC, Toshiomi Kazama, that's a road to the UFC guy. Nothing really to go off of there. Next step up is Fernie Garcia. Dominates that fight, doesn't get the finish, and then goes out there against Carlos Vera, who probably shouldn't be in the UFC, who's 36 years old, who hurt his shoulder in round 1, and bad fight IQ. Just stays on the ground with this guy, where Vera was likely to win the fight, and Nakamura did stay out of trouble, showed that he can grapple, that he can wrestle. But why aren't you just standing Vera up and just fighting him on the feet and knocking him out? Instead, he goes 3 rounds to a decision. The potential is certainly there, but when you're talking about the bantamweight division, 135, that's the deepest division that we have. So do I think he is top 10 ready tomorrow? Absolutely not. Am I excited to watch him as a prospect? Yes, definitely. So I'm going to go ahead and say crazy on that one. But he's still, he's like closing minus 1,000, minus 1,300. He's one of these massive prospects. It'll be exciting to see where he goes next. Next up, we have buy, sell, hold.
If you sell anything, sell that. Go ahead. Sell me that pen.
So you can only use each one once. You can only buy one fighter, sell one fighter, hold one fighter. The 3 names I'm going to throw out there, Paulo Costa, Alexander Volkanovski, and Jeff Neal. Those are 3 guys from UFC 298 who lost. They all lost. So first up, I'll go Alexander Volkanovski. If I had to choose one, it pains me to say it, you got to sell the stock in Volk right now. We had a good run. He's 35 years old, 36 years old. But when you fall off, I mean, he's drops his last 2, his last 3 even. I don't know if the first Islam fight, if there was a fight in between that, there may have been. But, he loses to Ilzam Makhachev 2 times. One of them, he got brutally KO'd in the first round with a head kick. That's not a good look. And then he goes out there and he loses to Topuria. And at 35, 36 years old, we had a good run, but now's the time to sell. He has peaked There's been a small drop off, and then when he lost to Topuria, there's probably a bigger drop off there. I think we can still sell, make some money on it. So I hate to say it, but Alexander Volkanovski, the best days are behind him. It's just unprecedented to see someone at this age come back, bounce back. Is he going to go to 155? That's not going to go well for him. Is he going to stay at 145? Maybe he just retires, but I'm selling. Paulo Costa. Are you going to buy Paulo Costa right now? I'm going to say hold. You know, I've never been convinced that Paulo Costa is that guy. I thought he's always been overrated. I kind of went over it in one of my videos on TikTok, but the dude just doesn't have, he's not active. He only has, one win in like the last 5 years, and that's coming against an old man in Luke Rockhold that he should have finished, and he didn't. Instead, he goes to decision. Sloppy win there, and then he goes out against Bobby Knuckles. Take away the potential head kick knockout that he almost had in round 1. I mean, he pretty much got worked that entire fight. So I'm not personally sold on Paulo Costa, but I understand his value to the company. The UFC loves this guy. He's a fan favorite. I will hold the stock on Paulo Costa. 32, 33 years old. Probably still has a couple years left. We'll see how active he stays, but I'll hold him, which means I'm going to buy Jeff Neal, which the guy's flying under the radar. He always has. I mean, his last 2 losses now, we're looking at a loss to Shavkat, and then most recently a loss to Angary, a fight where he probably should have won the fight. Maybe questionable fight IQ there, but he's always flying under the radar. He is always a tough fight. I don't mind buying him. So we're going to sell Volk. We're going to hold Paulo Costa, and we are going to buy Jeff Neal. Not crazy excited about the buying Jeff Neal part, but those are the cards I was dealt. So that's buy, sell, hold. Moving on to what's trending.
I'm Ron Burgundy, and this is what's happening in your world tonight.
We didn't really have a whole lot of news, but we did have one massive news, some massive announcement coming out for UFC 300. The main event finally has come out. It is going to be Alex Pereira fighting Jamal Hill, the former champ, taking on the current champ at 205. Is it the best main event that possibly could have been for UFC 300? No. Is it still a great fight? Yes. And I will still never understand why people are hating on UFC 300. I'm going to pull up the card right now. I still see people out there, even with this main event capping it off, they're still shitting on this card. Can I just say that the opening fight right now, Bobby Green versus Jim Miller, that's your opening early prelim fight. What's after that? Sadiq Youssef versus Diego Lopez. Are you kidding me? They signed Kayla Harrison to fight Holly Holm. That's early prelims. Figueiredo versus Cody Garbrandt. Also early prelims. Bo Nichols on the card. Jessica Andrade, former champ Calvin Kattar is back, taking on Aljamain Sterling in his 145 debut. The prelim headliner is Yuri versus Rakic. Why are we shitting on this card? It makes zero sense. Charlie Olives versus Arman, Gaethje versus Holloway, Zhang Wei Li versus Yan Shonan, and then Pereira versus Hill. 300 is absolutely stacked. I have zero idea why people are shitting on it. It makes no sense. I understand 299 is also an incredible card, but why can't we just have 2 great back-to-back cards and be happy with both of them? Yeah, 299 is pretty stacked as well, but I think you could make the argument that 300 is more stacked. The early prelims on 299, Joanne Wood versus Mariana Moroz, not a great fight. Vergera versus Almabayev, not a great fight. Josh Parisin's on it. Felipe Lins versus Kute Labo. Like, yeah, 299 definitely has some bangers on it, but I think as a whole, you could make the argument that UFC 300 is better, and I just don't get why people are shitting on it. So that's my UFC 300 rant. That's the biggest trending that we've had, was the 300 main event. I did see Michael Chandler out there on WWE cutting a promo to fight Conor McGregor. I'm done with that. Who cares? Does anyone still care about Conor McGregor? Because I don't. The guy's inactive. He has been for the last 7 years. He's not getting any better. He's barely training. I don't know if he's ever really going to make weight and actually fight again. I'm still doubtful that he's actually going to step into the UFC octagon and fight again. I don't think he makes weight. I don't think he's motivated. I'm not even really excited for that fight, to be honest. So, yeah, Michael Chandler cut a promo. WWE, UFC, they basically merged. They're under the same parent company, so no surprises there. When's Conor going to fight? It was supposed to be March, April, pushed back to June. Now it seems like it's going to be fall. It's just not going to happen. It's just never going to happen. I'm not getting my hopes up. I refuse to get my hopes up. You shouldn't either. And that's pretty much what we had for what's trending. So before we get into the UFC Mexico picks, I want to shout out some of the sponsors. WeWantPicks.com. If you guys haven't checked them out, you have to. If you want to make money betting this weekend, UFC Mexico, or literally any weekend going forward, these guys are the best. It's Angelo, it's Jacob. Those are the two head honchos over there, but you also get access to 4 other MMA betting analysts. One of them is AI driven, which is absolutely insane, the Pick Doctor. So those guys, they make money. They put in the time, they put in the effort, and they actually are up units. So make sure to check them out. If you use promo code MINUTE, you will get 3 days of free access. I also want to shout out the guys at OddsJam. It's a new tool that I've been using. It's very data-driven. They have a really cool positive EV tool. Basically, look across like literally 30 different sports books, and it finds the average odds, and then it finds also the best odds out there across these 30 sports books. So maybe some sportsbook, DraftKings may have it at -150. OddsJam will tell you that FanDuel has it at -110. You're just making money that way alone. So make sure to check them out. Also use promo code MINUTE. You're going to get 35% off and you get a free week trial. Make sure to check that out. BetUS, 125% deposit bonus. Make sure to check that out as well. All of these links are going to be in the description below, so make sure to check that out. Fan questions. We've already gotten, I think, 3 fan questions for today's episode. If you want to send in fan questions, just shoot me a DM. Instagram, TikTok, doesn't matter. I'll try to post the number below. You can leave a voicemail if you want to, but the more fan questions, the better. Drop it in the comments. Doesn't matter to me. And if you guys haven't yet, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. We're going to be trying to do this show every Wednesday going forward. So I like to do different segments, kind of keep it light, what's trending, catch you up on some news, and then we get into the picks. I know that's what the people are here for, so why don't we just get into it now? So Mexico City this weekend, I think they're calling it UFC Mexico. We'll do the preview and the picks. I'll go through the main card first, give you my picks, predictions for each fight. Then I will go and kind of do more of a quick picks for the remaining fights on the prelims and the early prelims. So let me just pull that up for you guys now. It is headlined. It's a rematch. Brandon Moreno taking on Brandon Royval in the rematch. We'll start bottom to top here. Manuel Torres taking on Chris Duncan. A good way to open the fight. I should say a good way to open the fight card on the main card. Chris Duncan, we got 5'10". They are fighting at lightweight 155. He is 30 years old, 71.5-inch reach. He is 11-1. He is your plus 150 underdog. Manuel Torres, 5'10", 28 years old, 73-inch reach. He is the minus 180 favorite. That line has been climbing. I'm not a big Chris Duncan fan, if I'm being honest. I think he's chinny. I think the durability is in question. And at this point, it feels like he's trying to wrestle to compensate for the lack of striking. And I don't know if that's necessarily going to work against Manuel Torres. So for those reasons and the physical attributes, the younger fighter, the taller fighter, the rangier fighter, the better striker, better finishability, the line seems to be creeping up on Manuel Torres. That is going to be my first official pick here. We are going Manuel Torres, round 1 knockout. Next fight, Yasmin Yargüe taking on Sam Hughes. Women's strawweight, Yargüe, 5'3", 24 years old, 64-inch reach. She's minus 550, taking on Sam Hughes, 5'5", 31 years old, also a 64-inch reach. Sometimes you play the UFC narrative, right? Yasmin Yargüe, they've been meaning to build her up, to get some hype on her name. They tried before. Denise Gomes got the better of her and ended up finishing her. I think it was either round 1 or round 2. Not a great look. The chin's a little bit questionable, but the skill set, the athleticism is definitely there. The ceiling is much higher for her than Sam Hughes. Sam Hughes is more of a generalist. Not great anywhere. She's not really dangerous anywhere, but she's going to be there all 3 rounds.
Get the right
She
oil
can play
for the right
spoiler.
price
She has
at
done it in the
AutoZone.
past. She did
Right
it
now,
against
you
Jacqueline
can get
Anne-Marie,
5
who I was
quarts of
high on.
STP
We almost
conventional
got the
or
Anne-Marie
high
sub,
mileage
but
with an
Sam Hughes
STP
survived
oil filter
and ended
for
up
only
winning that fight. So,
$26.99.
yes, Sam Hughes can play spoiler. Plus 385, you could probably do a lot worse with some underdogs.
Very thankful.
But it's got to be Yasmin Yargway all day here.
I just
Minus
can't wait to
550 is
leave this
absolutely
place and
insane.
enjoy with the
I
team
cannot
and with my
recommend that you
family.
bet that or even parlay it.
Sí, la
Maybe
verdad
you
que
look at an
it
inside the
means a lot
distance
to
play,
me.
but Sam
It
Hughes
means
is
a lot
pretty
to
tough.
me,
But
and I'm a lucky
officially,
man to
I
be
will
able
take
to
Uruguay to get
represent
the job done. Round 2 knockout.
such a
Really no big
great
surprise
countries
there. I
like
think
Spain
with
and
UFC
Georgia.
Mexico,
No lo sé, la verdad.
we're going to see a lot of
No
the
sé si
favorites
me
win,
convierto en
similar
una
to UFC
superestrella o no.
298.
Yo
That's
para
just
mí
my feel.
siempre he sido una
Next
superestrella
up,
desde
Raul
el día
Rosas
1.
Jr.
Siempre he
taking on
creído en
Ricky
mí,
Tercios.
siempre he tenido las
Yeah,
mayores
Rosas Jr.,
expectativas sobre
5'9",
mí, así que
19
para los
years
demás
old.
lo
Don't forget,
que
he's
soy o lo que
the
dejo de
youngest
ser no es
fighter to
algo que
ever
me
be signed
importa
to
a
the UFC
mí,
when
lo
he
que
was
me
17.
importa es
Now he is
la
19.
opinión
He's got
propia
a couple fights
y
under
la
his belt.
de mi
67
familia
inch reach. He's minus
y seres
225.
cercanos, ¿no?
Ricky Tercios, 5'9", 30 years old, 71 inch reach. So we're seeing an 11-year difference in the age, but Tercios is only 30. That's still his athletic prime. He is the
Not a
bigger
lot of people
guy,
know this, but the
71 inch to
Gecko is
67
actually
inch reach.
left-handed.
That's
He
in
made
his
it
favor as
easy
well.
with only his
Personally,
left hand.
not a big fan of Ricky Tercios. Another one of these guys where he's durable. He's going to be there all 3 rounds. The grappling is pretty good. I know the takedown defense might not necessarily be there, but he can scramble on the ground. He can definitely hold his own. He has only been finished 1 time by knockout, never by submission, which I think is pretty interesting. So this is another one of those fights where do we go with the UFC narrative? Obviously, Raul Rosas Jr. is someone that the UFC likes. It's someone that they want to push going forward. They kind of screwed up when they threw him Christian Rodriguez. I think we all underestimated how good he was. He's turned out to be a pretty solid fighter. And Rosas Jr. now, like he's 2-1 in the UFC with that 1 loss to Christian Rodriguez. The 2 wins is Jay Perrin and Terrence Mitchell, both guys who are just straight up not UFC level. You know, I am a fan of Jay Perrin, local guy, lives pretty close to where I am. I think I've interviewed him a couple times as well, so I am a Jay Perrin fan, but objectively speaking, Perrin and Mitchell, not high-level competition, so he's beating those guys, and he's doing it in round 1, but you give him a step up in competition against Christian Rodriguez, and he loses by decision with some rookie mistakes in there for sure. So, you know, Tercios plus 185, not a bad underdog look, but I'm going to believe in Raul Rosas Jr. He is going to be making massive leaps and bounds forward. The skill set is only going to get better for the next, 5 years, 19 years old. By the time this kid turns 24, 25, he should be an absolute stud. So I'm going to trust the process. I do think Rosas is going to get the fight to the ground. His grappling is very high level. I know Tercios hasn't been submitted yet, but there is a first for everything. Give me Rosas Jr. round 2 submission. Next fight, Daniel Zellhuber taking on Francisco Prado. This is a banger. This is going to be a fun fight. We have Zellhuber, 6'1", 24 years old, 77 inch reach. He is minus 275 right now, taking on Prado, who is 5'10", only 21 years old, 69 inch reach. So, you know, minus 275 for Zellhuber. I don't love that by any means. He did the odds makers, the bookies, Vegas, whatever you want to call them, they screwed up. They made Zellhuber a massive favorite, and that line came pouring down. He was like minus 400, minus 450. It corrected itself, as it does. That's what the market does. So it's down to minus 275. I still don't love it, but, you know, there's a lot of upside to Zellhuber. I totally understand it. The Trey Ogden fight didn't look great, but he has bounced back. He's picking up some pretty decent high-level wins. He's a young kid, 24. You could almost say 21 on the Prado side. That almost hurts him, kind of in the Raul Rosas Jr. way, where they're so inexperienced at that point. They're only going to learn from some of the mistakes they're making. Zellhuber's kind of already past that point. Seems like he is correcting a lot of those mistakes. Very well-rounded, good on the feet, massive reach, 77 inches for a lightweight. That's huge. He's 6'1". We saw the grappling chops is pretty good. He's got some submission threats in there. Prado's more of a one-dimensional striker. Definitely will probably have the power advantage, which is always going to scare you. But again, I think I got to ride with the favorite here in Daniel Zellhuber. He's definitely a guy I'm going to keep an eye on. Francisco Prado, definitely another guy you want to keep your eye on. But in this matchup, it actually makes no sense why they're taking two young, solid prospects and putting them together here so early in their careers. But we're getting it, and I think I got to go with Zellhuber. Prado is pretty durable. Zellhuber, not the biggest power puncher, so I'll take Zellhuber to win, and I'll say he gets it done by decision. Co-main event, Yair Rodriguez, Brian Ortega. This is a rebooked fight. We saw this get cut short early because of a Brian Ortega injury that was sustained. You got Yair Rodriguez, 5'11", 31 years old, 71-inch reach. He's minus 160 as the favorite. It's worth noting he opened as the underdog, and it flip-flopped the other way. Ortega, 5'8". He's now 33 years old. He has a 69-inch reach, and he is the plus 135 underdog. So I guess right off the bat, we already saw these two guys fight prior, and on the feet, Yair was just giving him problems, which is pretty typical against anybody in the featherweight division who's not Volkanovski or Max Holloway. Yair Rodriguez is one of the best strikers probably that the UFC has on the entire roster. So no surprise there. And Ortega, kind of on the flip side, he's more of a grappler. He's a submission artist. That's where he gets a lot of his wins. 10 of 15 fights finished, 7 of them by submission. But really with him, I just have never really been a massive Brian Ortega fan. I think really, the Max Holloway fight now was in 2018. That's almost 6 years ago. I feel like since then, he's just been so inactive, and I don't think he's really ever returned back to the glory days. The Korean Zombie win, that was a 5-round fight. He did look great in that, and I was thinking for a second, I was like, man, we're really going to get Brian Ortega 2.0. Then he gets a title shot against Volk, and he gets absolutely destroyed. Did have a couple of moments there where he almost submitted the former champ Volkanovski, but ultimately, unanimous decision loss. And then he goes out there. He gets injured against Yair Rodriguez. That's back in 2022. It's almost been 2 years now. He's 33 years old. There's just a lot of negative things on the Brian Ortega side where, yeah, maybe he can get a submission on Yair Rodriguez. I feel like Yair's takedown defense is not all that good. He does have some pretty good submissions himself, but Ortega definitely the better grappler. But it just feels like Yair is going to be such a better striker. He's the younger guy. He's the more dynamic guy. The finishing upside will be there. I think you got to go with Yair. We're taking another favorite here. I'll take Yair Rodriguez to get the job done. Ortega is a durable guy, but Yair is very dangerous. Give me Rodriguez. Round 3 knockout. And that brings us to the main event. Brandon Moreno, Brandon Royval. Similar to the Ortega fight, Royval and Moreno did fight before, but it got cut short because Royval's shoulder popped out as Moreno was basically on top, landing a ton of ground and pound. And, the ref stopped it, but it turned out Royval's shoulder popped out. So they're going to run it back here. Royval is stepping in on short notice. So that obviously favors Brandon Moreno. And we'll just look at it real quick. Moreno, 5'7", 30 years old, which is pretty insane because he has 30 fights professionally, and he's had so many high-level 5-round fights at this point. Championship experience. He is a former champ. 70-inch reach for him. Taking on Royval, who's plus 245, 5'9", 31 years old, 68-inch reach. I don't know, man. It's just a tale of two different stories. Brandon Moreno, since that fight with Royval, he has just shot to the moon. He's fought Figueiredo 4 times. And he's even won a couple of those. He is a former champ. He almost beat Alexander Pantoja. That was a very close fight. And with Brandon Moreno, it's just he's all around great at everything. The striking is on point. If anything, it has improved so much. The boxing is very elite. He's durable. He has cardio. The grappling is there. We saw that in the first fight. That was the difference maker, was the grappling. And Brandon Royval just doesn't have great takedown defense. He is a finisher, Royval is. So he can get it done on the feet in a big way. But again, Moreno's very tough, very durable. The chin is there. And we've seen Royval get some big submissions as well. But Moreno he's a black belt. He's a very good grappler. So I just don't see where Royval's going to win this out of a fluke finish. And that just doesn't happen to Brandon Moreno. Now, minus 300 is kind of a shitty price tag, but I got to go with it. We're taking all the favorites on the main card. I'm taking Brandon Moreno to go in there and get a round 4 submission. Another thing to note, you've probably heard this if you've watched a bunch of other videos, we're at an extremely high elevation. It's like 7,000 feet above sea level. People are going to gas out. Brandon Moreno is going to have a cardio edge here. I think he can just kind of wear on Royval and eventually find that round 4 submission is what we're officially going with. So it's all the favorites on the main card. I'll quickly go into the prelims, the early prelims, and just give you some of my quick picks. So the first one here, Quiñones taking on Barcelos. I used to be a big Barcelos guy, but he's one of these guys where he's going to be more skilled in this fight, but he's 36 years old. The durability is in question. I feel like if anything, the elevation is going to affect him more. So I'd love to pick Barcelos here, but Quiñones hits, and he hits hard. And I feel like with the questionable durability of Barcelos, I'm going to take a shot on the underdog Quiñones round 2 knockout. Aguilar versus Mendonça. I don't really love either guy, to be honest. Mendonça just got absolutely exposed by Nate Maness in his last fight. So if he's not getting an early finish, I question him. Jesus Aguilar, fluke knockout over Shannon Ross, who I'm pretty sure I could knock out Shannon Ross. But with Aguilar, he's 5'4" and he has a 62-inch reach. So I think Mendonça on the feet definitely is going to have a big advantage. But if Aguilar can kind of weather that storm, get the grappling going, I think that's where he's going to win the fight. So I'll actually take another stab at the underdog in Aguilar. Give me round 3 sub. Next fight, Charez versus Lacerda. Ridiculous fight. They just keep forcing this. It's like the 7th time it's been rebooked. And as much as Lacerda is extremely dangerous in round 1, he just falls off a cliff. If he's not getting the finish, he is going to get finished. We literally saw that against Charez. I don't think Charez is getting finished. I'm going to back Edgar Charez here. Minus 370 is pretty insane, but he's probably going to likely get this done inside the distance. Charez round 2 knockout. Next fight, Claudio Puelles versus Faraz Ziam. Ziam minus 220. That's not exciting. Plus 180 Puelles. Like, that's a decent underdog shot. I know he was completely exposed by Dan Hooker in his last fight, but the man is dangerous. Ziam has a decent ground game. He's a technical guy. He's very defensive, but he's low volume. He's not dangerous at all. So you got to go Ziam by decision or probably Puelles by submission. That's the way that I would look at it personally. I will take Ziam by decision. I can't back these BJJ nerds, the butt scoots, pulling guard, all that crap. They can't strike. If they don't have it their way, it just looks so pathetic. I can't back that. So give me Ziam to win by decision. Rodriguez versus Bondar. This is a coin flip fight. It's a near pick'em. I feel like with Bondar, there was some hype on his name early on, and then he came into the UFC, and we just haven't really seen it at all. He does have the reach advantage. He probably has maybe better experience than Rodriguez does, but I'm going to fade Bondar here. I'm going to take Rodriguez to get the job done. Bondar's pretty tough, so give me Rodriguez by decision. Altamirano versus Dos Santos. Tricky fight. Should Dos Santos be minus 310? Absolutely not. Altamirano plus 250 as an underdog. I like it. I like the number personally. I think Altamirano's pretty underrated. He's just one of those guys who's very tough. He's going to be there for all 3 rounds. He's got decent volume. He's hard to finish. He's got pretty good grappling as well, but he just lacks that finishing ability. He doesn't really have that danger threat. Dos Santos did show out in his UFC debut. I think it was against Manel Kopp. I think maybe we're buying into that just a little bit too much with the minus 310 price tag, but I think overall Dos Santos just being able to also land a very high level of volume, and he'll have the danger aspect. I think Dos Santos probably gets it done. 23 years old, 10-year age difference. I'll take Dos Santos by decision. And that brings us to the first fight on the entire card. The last one that I'll break down quickly. Eric Silva versus Naimov. Naimov is probably the biggest hammer spot you could possibly have. If you could have got into this line, yesterday or even the day before, good for you. You could probably parlay him with a couple things, but now he's minus 475. He is the biggest hammer spot. Eric Silva, he's 36 years old. I don't think he's UFC level. Naimov, I really wasn't impressed with him to begin with. But then he goes out there, starches Jamie Malarkey, which is not entirely hard to do. And then he also goes out there and he beats Nathaniel Wood, which to me is a massive win to have. I don't know why he's fighting Eric Silva after beating Nathaniel Wood. That makes no sense. But Naimov probably should be the biggest favorite on this card. He is the absolute hammer spot. Probably gets it done inside the distance. Give me Naimov, round 1 knockout. So those are all the picks, the predictions for UFC Mexico. Let me know what you guys think below in the comments. We are now going to get into some fan mail.
Now let's talk about the mail. Can we talk about the mail, please, Mac? I'm dying to talk about the mail.
Some Q&A here. We had 3 come up. I will play the audio here. 1 voicemail and a couple questions from TikTok. So let's play this one first.
What up, bro? Just wanted to see what you think about my 3-man parlay. I got Naimov money line, Yair Rodriguez fight going over 1.5, and the Brandon Moreno fight going over 1.5. I think that's lock of the year if you ask me, bro.
All right, so you guys, if you didn't hear it, he's taking the Naimov side, which, like I just said, you should absolutely hammer him. The Yair Rodriguez fight going over 1.5 and the Brandon Moreno fight going over 1.5. And he called it the lock of the year. Hate throwing around the L word. You always seem to pay the price if you do that. But I think I do agree with it. I think the biggest thing you'd have to be concerned with is definitely that co-main event, Yair Rodriguez and Brian Ortega. It just seemed like in that first fight, things happened, and they happened very quickly. Both guys are dangerous. Like, Ortega could get a submission literally at any point. Yair Rodriguez could land a head kick knockout at any point. So that to me is the riskiest one. But yeah, I don't hate it. 1.5, that's 7.5 minutes. That's not a lot of time. We should hit that. Moreno versus Royval. I think if Moreno's winning, which he should win, it's going to go over 1.5, and then Naimov money line's an absolute lock. So I got to say, I like it. I like it, and good luck to you. Another couple questions here. What's your thoughts on Ilia's take on the division? Should Yair, Max, or Ortega get another shot, or let the new generation start? It's a good question. I know he's saying like some certain fighters don't deserve to get any shots here, but I think if anyone, it's going to be Yair Rodriguez. If he goes in there, he beats Brian Ortega. I think he probably gets the next shot just because he's a big name. He's a flashy guy. I do believe him and Topuria have some beef going on, so I think you definitely can give Yair a shot there. Max Holloway maybe takes himself out of the picture just because of the Justin Gaethje fight. And then next up is Movsar Evloev. I don't think the UFC's rushing to do that anytime soon. I do think Evloev is the next guy up. He rightfully deserves it, but if Yair goes out there, and especially if he finds a finish, he deserves the title shot next just because of the storyline. We know that's all the UFC really cares about these days. So overall, I don't agree with Ilia. I think you just take the guy who's in front of you. You're the champ. You just got there. Get some title defenses. Just take 2 in a row. Who cares? Yair now, Evloev next. Just get the job done and don't worry about it. Next up, I will bet 500 euros on a 4-leg parlay that would 100% cash. Naimov, Yargüe, Raul Rosas Jr., and Brandon Moreno. You just heard my breakdown. I am 100% in on the Naimov side. Yargüe, I am 100% in on. Raul Rosas Jr., I can't recommend betting on him at this point because he's 19 years old. The 2 wins he has are super low level. I don't think Tercios is all that good, but I think you just got to be a little bit patient with Raul Rosas before you're putting him into any locks necessarily. And then I do agree that Brandon Moreno is going to win. Maybe you just pull out Rosas Jr., you do a 3-leg parlay. That probably still comes out to a close to probably like an even money payout. Throw $500 on it. That's easy money. So that's fan mail. Good questions. Keep them coming. Like I said, throw a question in the comments. DM me on Instagram, on Twitter, on TikTok. Leave a voicemail. I think those are hilarious to upload the MP3 audios and hear it played on the show live. So make sure to do that whenever you can. And that's the show, everyone. Good luck with your bets this weekend. Enjoy the fights, and we'll see you next week.